Green light.
Keep doing this. We're good to go. So I'm going to be turning off my camera, um, but we're good to start.
Thanks, Rafa. Appreciate all of your hard work.
You're welcome.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Danielle DeSmith. Welcome to round 4 of the Ventura County High School mock trial competition. I know it's probably a little stressful with the delay, so I'm going to invite everybody to take a deep breath. We're going to have plenty of time. No one's going to get cut off, and we're going to have a great trial. And I know that because I have been in your seat before. I competed in this competition when I was in high school, if you can believe it, in the 1990s, before any of you were born. And I've competed at every level since, in college and law school, and I've coached at every level. And so we're going to have a really good round tonight. And other than taking a deep breath and speaking slowly, if I could just encourage everyone to stop speaking if someone else begins talking, and that way we can, one, account for any technological delay. If different people have different internet speeds or bandwidth, it will help account for that delay. And then number 2, if it's a witness examination, it allows me to stop, hear any objection. So witnesses stop speaking as soon as anybody objects, and we'll take it up and everybody will get a chance to be heard. So you don't have to worry about that. One thing I would like to do in order to make up for the time this evening is, rather than do a group introduction at the beginning, if we could please have everybody introduce themselves before each performance. So if it's prosecution witness number 1, I would like, once the witness is sworn in, the directing attorney to please introduce him or herself, and the crossing attorney to please introduce him or herself. And that also helps myself and the scorers just make sure that we have the right name affiliated with the right role as we move through the trial. I'll also be pausing everyone between direct and cross-examination to allow us all to write down our comments so that they can get through to you in a timely fashion, and along with our scores, so that we're scoring as we go along. And with that, I will hear any preliminary or housekeeping matters before we move to the pretrial motion. Is there anything from the prosecution or the defense in terms of housekeeping?
None from the prosecution, Your Honor.
None from the defense, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. Then are you two our pretrial attorneys this evening?
Yes, Your Honor, I am.
Very good. Then, as you know, the defense has the motion, so you'll go first. You each have 4 minutes, and then you'll each have a 2-minute rebuttal. And I'll politely interrupt you when I have a question. Whenever you're ready, counsel.
Your Honor, my name is Gabriel Barnhart, counsel for Lee Crotty, the defendant in this action. The defense asks for a motion to suppress the conversation between Officer Max Bird and Ms. Crotty on February 16th in Officer Bird's vehicle. During her conversation with Officer Bird, Lee Crotty specifically asked Officer Bird if she should be reaching out to her lawyer. Lee felt as though she was being questioned. Lee Crotty was not read her Miranda rights, therefore her statements are, under the exclusionary rule, considered obtained illegally, because they are in violation of Lee Crotty's Fifth Amendment right. Your Honor, both Lee and Officer Byrd stated in their witness statement that Officer Byrd took a call from the police radio. This indicates Officer Byrd was on duty and acting as an officer of the law at the time of the questioning. Your Honor, the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution states, "No person shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of the law." Lee Crotty's Fifth Amendment right is in violation if this questioning is not excluded from this case. Your Honor, in People v. Boyer, the court deems that if a coercive environment diminishes the defendant's ability to exercise their Miranda rights, the statements are deemed inadmissible. Officer Byrd ignored Lee's request for counsel during the questioning. Your Honor, the motion is challenging the admissibility of the questioning since no Miranda warning was administered. Questioning is a result of a custodial interrogation designed to elicit incriminating evidence from Lee Crotty, making it admissible as it violates Lee Crotty's Fifth Amendment right.
Counsel, let me stop you there. Did you tell me that your client did request counsel at some point during the conversation with the officer?
Lee Crotty asked if she should be reaching out to her lawyer in the middle of the conversation.
And so tell me, where was everybody situated when that request occurred?
I believe at the time of the request, Lee Crotty was in the back of the police unmarked vehicle and Officer Byrd was driving.
Thank you. You can continue.
That is all, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you. Prosecution, would you like to make your opening remarks?
Yes, Your Honor. Your Honor, the motion for this pretrial involves the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution that states no person shall be compelled to be a witness against themselves. In People v. Crotty, Ms. Crotty's Fifth Amendment rights were not violated, nor were her Miranda warnings. The evidence obtained during the conversation between Officer Max Byrd and Lee Crotty should be permitted in this case. The conversation in question was not a custodial interrogation. Ms. Crotty was not under arrest. She was free to leave, which she did as soon as they reached the police station. The evidence in question was, in fact, the product of a casual conversation between Officer Byrd and Ms. Crotty, not a custodial interrogation, and should therefore be admitted in court. There are two components to a custodial interrogation. The first is that the circumstances of the interrogation must objectively amount to custody, and the second is that the reasonable person under those circumstances feels that they aren't free to leave. Ms. Crotty was asked to come down to the station to answer questions, which she accepted. Officer Byrd then offered to drive Ms. Crotty, and Ms. Crotty accepted a second time. Ms. Crotty could have refused to answer questions, and she could have refused Officer Byrd's invitation to drive her to the police station and elect to drive herself. These two facts do not equate to the first component of a custodial interrogation. The second component of a custodial interrogation involves Ms. Crotty's understanding that she is free to leave. Officer Byrd was not in uniform and was driving an unmarked vehicle which had no siren and no metal cage. These facts made it clear that Ms. Crotty had the ability to leave. Furthermore, when Ms. Crotty and Officer Byrd reached the police station, Ms. Crotty elected to wait outside the police station for her attorney. Once her attorney was present, Ms. Crotty was interviewed later that day, proving Ms. Crotty understood she was free to leave at any moment and not in police custody. Your Honor, People v. Torres demonstrates how a voluntary statement, similar to our case, was deemed admissible by the Supreme Court. In People v. Torres, the defendant offered a spontaneous admission voluntarily prior to receiving his Miranda warning. Another officer arrived, administered the Miranda warnings in Spanish, and again the defendant volunteered another statement. These statements were admissible because the defendant was not being interrogated. In our case, Officer Byrd was not interrogating Ms. Crotty. They were having a casual conversation about topics of interest to Ms. Crotty when Ms. Crotty voluntarily offered her statement. A casual conversation by Officer Byrd did not constitute police coercion. Moreover, due to the fact that Ms. Crotty was not being interrogated, a Miranda warning was not required.
Ms. Eckert, let me stop you. I'm curious about the same fact that I questioned defense counsel about, and that is, what about when the defendant asked, "Do I need an attorney?" or words to that effect? Shouldn't the officer have responded differently at that point?
Well, Your Honor, Officer Byrd never denied Lee Crotty an attorney. She simply stated that she was not being accused of anything.
Are you going to address, I don't want to cut you off, when you say that she wasn't being accused of anything, so are you going to address the officer's statements to the defendant and whether or not those were likely to elicit an incriminating response? Wasn't the officer asking the defendant about subject matter that's directly related to the charges that are brought against the defendant today?
Well, Your Honor, yes, the statements are related to this case, but Officer Bird did not ask them to interrogate Miss Crotty. Officer Bird asked them just simply to know if he recognized Miss Crotty from her YouTube channel.
Thank you. You can continue.
In Rhode Island v. Ines, the defendant was arrested for the robbery and murder of a taxi driver. The location of the shotgun that was used was unknown. On the way to the police station, the officers were having a casual conversation about the gun. The defendant then told them the location of the shotgun. Similarly, in our case, Officer Bird and Miss Crotty were having a casual conversation on their way to the police station. The statements that the defendant offered were admissible to court because the officers had no reason to believe that their conversation would result in an incriminating response. Officer Bird had no reason to believe that the conversation with Miss Crotty would result in an incriminating response. If we take a look at People v. Andreessen, we see that a casual conversation is admissible in court. In this case, the officers and the defendant engaged in a casual conversation about the defendant's interests and life. Comparably, in our case, the conversation between Officer Bird and Miss Crotty was a casual conversation about Miss Crotty's interests. The statement was admissible because casual conversations are not designed to elicit an incriminating response and therefore do not require Miranda warnings. The conversation between Officer Bird and Miss Crotty was a casual conversation. The conversation was not a custodial interrogation, and Miss Crotty knew she was free to leave. Thus, there was no violation of the defendant's Fifth Amendment rights. Therefore, we request that you deny the defense's motion.
Okay, shh.
Thank
Oh,
you, counsel.
sorry.
That's all right. You ready with your rebuttal?
Yes, Your Honor.
Go ahead, Mr. Barnhart.
Your Honor, although it may have seemed as though it was a casual conversation to some, to Lee Crotty, it was not. Lee Crotty was in an unmarked police vehicle, yes, but Officer Bird answered his police radio, which was proving that he was on duty at the time of the questioning. Your Honor, Lee Crotty felt that Your Honor, Lee Crotty felt as though it was a coercive environment due to the police radio being in the car and Officer Bird questioning her. Lee Crotty, although technically, Lee Crotty felt as though it was an interrogation because Officer Bird was, as I stated, on duty and questioning about things relating to Remy Montoya. So Lee Crotty, the defense would further the motion that the conversation between Officer Bird and Lee Crotty be dismissed because it is in violation of Lee Crotty's Fifth Amendment right, since no Miranda warnings were administered. That is all.
Let me, before you go, before I rule, let me ask you this. The people cited a number of cases, so I'll give you a multiple choice. Which case do you think that you have reviewed is most in support of the defense position here that Crotty's Fifth Amendment rights were violated? Or which case do you think that the people cited most supports your position?
Personally, Your Honor, I cited People versus Boyer to assist this motion.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Rebuttal from the prosecution?
Yes, Your Honor. May I begin?
Yes.
Opposing counsel stated that the conversation was a custodial interrogation and that Lee Crotty believed she was in custody at the time. However, this is incorrect because the conversation was between Officer Bird and Lee Crotty was a casual conversation, and Miss Crotty voluntarily got into the car with Officer Bird. Opposing counsel used People v. Boyer to state that the conversation between Officer Bird and Miss Crotty was an interrogation because it was in a custodial setting. But People v. Boyer is distinguishable on the fact that when the defendant asked for an attorney, the request was denied. However, in our case, Lee Crotty was not denied an attorney. Lee Crotty was not in a was not in custody and the conversation was a casual conversation. For these reasons, we ask that you deny the defense's motion to suppress the conversation. Thank you, Your Honor.
One last question for you, Ms. Zacharias. You said it's a casual conversation while not in a custodial environment, but you don't deny that the defendant was in the back of a police car, right?
Yes.
And so wouldn't a reasonable person under the test that we have to imply here believe that they weren't free to leave?
Well, Your Honor, being in the backseat of a police car alone is not a custodial setting. Lee Crowdy voluntarily got into the police car, and at that time she was only taken as a witness. She was not taken in. She was not in custody.
Thank you. Anything further?
No, that is all. Thank you.
I'll give both teams 30 seconds to confer with their faculty advisors to make sure there have been no rule violations during the pretrial motion while I deliberate my ruling.
There are no irregularities for the defense, Your Honor.
Thank you.
And for prosecution, Your Honor.
Thank you. Okay, after careful consideration and thoughtful argument from both sides, I'm going to deny the defense motion. So the statements will be allowed to be used in trial as both sides see fit, of course, subject to other objections that you have available to you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you both. At this time, are representatives from the prosecution and defense ready to move to opening statements?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes.
Thank you. And is it Miss, would you pronounce each of your names for me?
My name is Tarika Thatch, and I
Miss Thatch.
represent the people of the state of California.
Thank you. And is it Mr. Morales for the defense?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. Ms. Thatch, you can proceed with the prosecution opening statement when you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. It is hard to see the blood-stained wires of malintent that control you when you're looking at them through rose-colored lenses. And in this case of Lee Crotty and her manipulation of Remy Montoya, this statement is no exception. Lee Crotty knew of Remy Montoya's mentally picturesque view Mr. Montoya had for her, and allowed it to be the engine for the circumstances that have led us to the following. Your Honor, in this case, the state charges the defendant, Lee Crotty, with 2 charges: aiding and abetting a first-degree burglary and accessory after the fact. On February 14th, 2020, the defendant, Lee Crotty, sent Remy Montoya the following messages. "We need those documents, Remy. Really need them. You need to get into that house tomorrow." This is where Lee Crotty puts the request in for Mr. Montoya to take the documents. As requested by Lee Crotty, Remy Montoya broke into Drew Marshak's house and acquired the documents for Lee. After Mr. Montoya realized too late on what he had done, he sought aid from his idol, Lee Crotty, at the meet and greet. Later, Lee Crotty takes Mr. Montoya to her home, where Mr. Montoya stayed in her guest house. And after receiving a tip from someone claiming to have recognized the suspect, Officer Max Bird arrived at Lee's home and arrested Remy Montoya. Your Honor, the state will call 4 different witnesses in this trial. We will call Drew Marshak, who will state how his home was broken into and how the robbery put him in the hospital due to the encounter with Mr. Montoya. He will also state the things he heard from Remy Montoya the day his house got robbed. We will then call Officer Max Bird, who will state how she went into the defendant's home and arrested Mr. Montoya, where she then becomes skeptical of defendant's involvement in Mr. Montoya's arrest. Then you'll hear from Dr. Kai Chavez, who will talk about groupthink and how it is relevant to the group chat the defendant made for her followers. Finally, we'll call Remy Montoya himself, who will testify that the defendant's influential message moved him to take the documents from Drew Marshak that day. He will also talk about how Lee Crotty sheltered him after the crimes were committed. The evidence will show you that Lee Crotty influenced and led an illusion fan into stealing a government document to promote her agenda, then helped Mr. Montoya lay low in Lee Crotty's own home. It is hard to see the manipulation when it comes from someone you admire the most. After you have heard all of the evidence, the prosecution would ask that you find the defendant, Lee Crotty, guilty as charged on all accounts. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, counsel. Mr. Morales, does the defense wish to give its opening at this time?
Yes, Your Honor.
Go ahead when you're ready.
Good evening. May I go forth?
Yes.
Your Honor, my name is Isaac Morales, counsel for Lee Crotty, the defendant in action. The evidence will show no malintent from Ms. Crotty's part. Witness Zuri O'Neill will be called to tell of his interactions with the defendant and will speak on the character of the defendant. Mr. O'Neill will also testify as to his perspective of Ms. Crotty while they were in a group chat together. He will help prove that Ms. Crotty was not the reason that Remy Montoya chose to commit these crimes, and that Remy Montoya was obsessed with the defendant. You will also hear from Dr. Jess Bjart, who will testify on how Remy idolized the defendant to the point to where not only was Remy Montoya willing to commit a crime for her, but also believed that they were asked to do it by the defendant. But Dr. Jess Bjart will be sharing her professional opinions on the apparent one-sided relationship between Lee Crotty and her fan, Remy Montoya. Lee considers Montoya nothing more than a fan. Dr. Bart will discuss a professional opinion that Remy Montoya is an obsessed stan for Ms. Crotty and would do anything to gain her attention and gain Lee's attention. You will also hear from Aaron Sullivan, Lee's agent, who will testify on the character of Ms. Crotty. Aaron will share her perspective of what happened leading up to the events on February 15th and how Ms. Crotty was nothing but an acquaintance of Remy Montoya. Aaron will support that Ms. Crotty was only looking to support a fan that seemed to be in need, and Lee had no association with the crimes that were committed. Finally, you will hear from Lee Crotty, the defendant and a YouTuber, who will testify that the only intention was to give people information she thought was useful knowledge. She will share her perspective of the events that transpired on February 15th and 16th, and telling of how a frantic and disheveled fan, one whom she had only a limited number of interactions with, came causing a scene. Lee will testify that she was only attempting to do what any considerate person would do by helping a panicked acquaintance while also helping boost her own publicity by staying loyal to her fans when she is needed. The case is simple, Your Honor. Ms. Crotty asked for the information that she felt was important, but at no time did she tell anyone to break into a house and punch a man. We will prove without a shadow of a doubt that Lee committed no crime, but in fact was a victim of unnatural infatuation from a fan. Thank you for your time, Your Honor.
Thank you for your statement, counsel. Before the prosecution calls the first witness, let me pause briefly so that we can conclude our comments and scores. And then just a reminder, before the witness is called, if I can hear introductions from the directing and crossing attorneys. Okay, very good. Are the people ready with their first witness?
Yes, Your Honor. First, my name is Zulema Rodriguez, and I represent the people of the state of California. Is the closing? Yeah.
Good evening, Your Honor. I am Jarek Charlton, and I'll be the cross-examination attorney for the defendant Lee Crotty.
Good evening. Thank you, counsel. Madam Bailiff, would you please swear in the witness?
Your Honor, I haven't called the witness yet.
We should do that first. You're absolutely right.
The prosecution calls Derek Marshak.
Marshak to stand. Your Honor, for the benefit of the scores, my name is Jesus Ortega, and tonight I'll be portraying Drew Marshak.
Thank you, Mr. Ortega.
Leslie Levine, and I will assist as the court bailiff tonight.
Thank you. Nice to see you as always, Madam Bailiff.
Please state your name.
My name is Drew Marshak, Marshak.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to the facts and rules of the mock trial competition?
I do.
Thank you.
May I begin, Your Honor?
You may.
Good evening, Mr. Marshak.
Good evening.
Can you tell us what your occupation is?
I'm an investigator with the California State Department of Justice Bureau of Investigation. I've been for over 15 years. Much of my work involves confidential matters, therefore I cannot disclose much information.
Did anything unusual occur on February 15, 2020?
Yes, I do recall an unusual event happening that day.
And what occurred?
I was on my way back from grocery shopping. I arrived at my house around 3 p.m. and I noticed that the side gate was slightly open, which in this instance was unusual.
What happened next?
Well, I cautiously opened the front door, and then I see what I thought were faint, muddy footprints on the door and on the floor inside. Sorry, and I step inside into the entryway, and I see an intruder turning the corner from my sitting room into the entryway.
Did you ever identify who the intruder was?
Yes. Later, I learned that it was one of the defendant's followers, Remy Montoya.
And what happened next?
I tried to stop the intruder, but before I could put up any real fight, I was sucker punched. I lost my balance. I fell backwards, and I hit the back of my head with the edge of a table.
And then what happened?
Well, I look up, and then I see Remy holding my state issue briefcase. He looks panicked.
At the time of the altercation, did Remy say anything?
Yes, Remy said, among other things, Lee is not going to like this, and at least I got the proof we needed, and other things about trust and a revolution.
And then what happened?
Well, then Remy looked at me, and then they quickly said, "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. I had to do it. I had to do it. This is for the people." Then Remy bolts from the room.
At the end of all this, where did you end up, Mr. Marshak?
Well, I was in a haze, and I recall being really hazy in the hospital bed, and then I was questioned by the police.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. One moment before cross-examination, please. Thank you. Mr. Charlton, whenever you're ready.
Mr. Marshak, did you see the defendant, Lee Crody, at any point that day?
I only heard their name being said. I didn't see the defendant.
Isn't it a fact you found Remy in your home and were punched in the face?
Yes, I fell backwards, and there I hit the back of my head with the edge of a table.
So it is true you were knocked down during the assault that day?
Yes.
Wouldn't you agree that the pain from your wound made you dizzy and you were in shock?
I went into shock at that time, yes.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Marshak, you did hear Remy Montoya say, and I quote, "Lee is not going to like this," correct?
Yes, I did.
No further questions, Your Honor. May this witness be excused?
Yes, thank you. When the prosecution's ready, you can call your next witness.
Yes, Your Honor. The prosecution calls Officer Maxine Bird.
Thank you. Ms. Thatch for the people and for the defense.
Please state your name and spell it out for the court.
Maxine Bird, B-I-R-D.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will faithfully and truthfully confirm the facts and rules of the mock trial competition?
I swear.
Thank you.
And Mr. Charlton, this will be your cross-examination also.
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. Ms. Thatch, you can proceed.
Good evening, Officer Bird.
Good evening.
Can you state your occupation for me?
I'm a police officer with the Beacon County Sheriff Station in Beacon County, California,
How long have you been with the Beacon County Sheriff's Office?
for around 10 years now.
And did anything unusual occur on February 15th of 2020?
Yes, I started investigating the robbery of Drew Marshak.
And did anything happen on the following day, February 16th, 2020?
Yes, we received a tip from someone claiming to have recognized a wanted suspect from a robbery the day before, and so I went to investigate.
What robbery did you believe the tip was regarding?
I thought this might have something to do with the robbery of Drew Marshak from the day before.
And did you find the suspect?
Yes, when I arrived at the scene, an individual who matched the description of Remy Montoya was pacing in the front yard.
And were you able to identify this individual by name?
Yes, it was Remy Montoya.
What did you do next?
I arrested Remy Montoya for the robbery of Drew Marshak the day before.
And did Montoya say anything noteworthy to you while being arrested?
Yes, he said, "Officer, we're starting a revolution here. Join us. We're the only ones that know the truth."
Did Montoya mention who the us was referring to?
No, but he did nod toward the home while giving that statement.
Oh, I'm sorry. What else, if anything, did you learn from Montoya?
When I questioned Montoya at the station, he revealed how Crotty had provided him with personal information about Drew Marshak's name and address, as well as documents Marshak had that apparently both Crotty and Montoya thought were crucial to exposing the truth about UFOs to the American public.
And did Montoya tell you anything else?
Yes, Montoya also disclosed to me how Crotty had instructed him to get into Marshak's house and steal the documents.
And did you have any contact with anyone else at the scene?
Yes, the homeowner and person Montoya told me about, Lee Crotty, came outside in pajamas and slippers while I was arresting Montoya.
And what was Crotty's demeanor at the time?
Crotty seemed nervous and just pretty distressed about the whole situation.
And what did you do next?
I asked Crotty if we could go down to the police station together so I could ask Crotty further questions as a witness.
And what did Crotty say to you on the way to the police station, if anything?
Crotty told me, sure, I told the kid to go down there and get those documents, which I took to be an admission by Crotty that she had told Remy Montoya to commit the burglary.
And how did you conclude your investigation?
After a thorough investigation, including interviewing several witnesses, I placed Crotty under arrest for aiding and abetting Remy Montoya in first-degree robbery and accessory after the fact.
All right, no further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Cross-examination?
May I proceed, Your Honor?
Yes, please.
Officer Bird, You were the first officer on the day of Montoya's arrest, correct?
Correct.
On first approaching Montoya, what was their behavior like?
Montoya seemed pretty distressed the whole time. He mentioned a lot about UFOs and the like of that.
So it appeared. Oh.
No, that's okay.
So he appeared to be frantic and/or anxious during your interactions?
Yes.
And did you speak to the defendant after arresting Montoya?
Yes, I did speak to Lee Crotty at the scene.
What was Crody's initial response to seeing you?
Crotty was, she mentioned, "Oh God, what did Remy do? What did Remy take?" When we initially arrived.
And did Crody know what was going on?
I can't say that either way, but Crotty did seem to understand that Remy had done something.
Is it true that the defendant was more than willing to comply in any way you asked?
Yes, that's true.
So Crody did not resist in any way?
No.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, counsel. Any redirect?
No redirect, Your Honor. May this witness be excused?
Yes, thank you, officer.
Thank you.
Give us one moment before calling the next witness. Okay, go ahead. Prosecution, call your next witness.
First, Your Honor, the prosecution calls for a time check.
Of course.
Hello, Your Honor. My name is Lorena Mondragon, and it's my pleasure to be your clerk this evening.
Good
Defense
evening,
Defense has 7 minutes and 47 seconds remaining for cross-examination, and prosecution has 7 minutes and 53 seconds remaining for direct examination.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Your Honor, the prosecution calls Dr. Kai Chavez.
Kai Chavez to the stand. Please state your name and spell it out for the court.
Dr. Kai Chavez, Chavez.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to the facts and rules of the mock trial competition?
I do.
Thank you.
May I begin, Your Honor?
May.
Good evening, Ms. Chavez.
Good evening, Mr. Rodriguez.
Would you please introduce yourself to the court?
Of course. My name is Dr. Kai Chavez. I have a bachelor's degree in psychology and an MD specializing in various mental illnesses.
What research do you specialize in?
So my research specializes in mood and personality disorders, such as depression, and also personalities are seen as being extreme and inflexible.
What area of research have you extensively conducted?
Groupthink has actually been one of my specialties.
Can you please explain what groupthink is?
Of course, groupthink is the idea that a group behaves in a certain inflexible way that leaves a little room for individual creativity or decision making.
What happens in a groupthink situation?
So in a groupthink situation, the people involved they agree for the sake of agreeing, which leads to group conformity and ultimately to a possible disaster.
Could you give us an example of a groupthink situation?
Yes, so a perfect example would be the Space Shuttle Challenger tragedy that led to experts at NASA deciding to conduct the launch despite evident dangers.
And how, if at all, does groupthink pertain to this case?
Well, in a group chat started by Crody, Zuri O'Neill supports the overarching ideas of the group chat because that was just the perceived desire of Lee Crody. In essence, it creates an environment in which anyone will do whatever Lee Cruddy says.
And what, if any, is the connection between Lee Cruddy and groupthink?
So groupthink could be associated with the idolizing of an online personality. So in that case, it would be Lee Cruddy.
And what kind of environment did Lee Cruddy's idolized online personality create?
So Lee Cruddy created a toxic, hostile online community that had a consistent flow of constant content with long, angry rants that just specifically targeted the government and even named an official, which is doxing in that case.
And can you explain to us what doxing is?
So doxing is revealing someone's personal information online, and it leads to members within the groupthink to target a person accused of wrongdoing by the idolized celebrity.
Moving on, how do direct calls of action fit into this groupthink?
Well, the calls of actions are not toxic by themselves, but they can be traits of such an environment when they promote toxic behavior.
Finally, in your expert opinion, Dr. Chavez, who was the leader of the online community that led to toxic environments and limited individual decision-making?
Well, in my expert opinion, the lead figures, Lee Cruddy, he's the one who created the toxic online community, made hostile calls for action, and imposed his individual desires upon others.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Cross-examination?
May I proceed, Your Honor?
Yes.
Dr. Chavez, you've been an expert for many witness cases, correct?
Oh, yeah.
You stated in your statement you have extensively researched the concept of groupthink, correct?
Yeah, my specialty.
Wouldn't you agree those who participate in groupthink are directly associated with traits of personality disorder?
Yes, that is correct.
Didn't you state in your statement there is evidence of the groupthink phenomenon in this case in question?
Yes, there is.
Wouldn't you agree in an online setting, groupthink can often be associated with idolizing of an online personality?
Yes, yes.
In a groupthink environment, would you say that someone can become obsessed with the person they idolize?
Yes.
In your professional opinion, would you say that Remy Montoya idolizes the defendant?
Yeah, I could say so.
Would you say that since Remy Montoya is idolizing the defendant, they would go out of their way to make sure that they stay in the good graces of the defendant?
Yes.
Would you say that Remy Montoya would even go as far as doing all of this just to become closer to the defendant?
I cannot come to that conclusion exactly.
So wouldn't it appear as though Remy Montoya decided to commit these crimes on their own free will due to their obsession and idolization of the defendant?
Yes.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Any redirect?
None, Your Honor. May this witness be excused?
Yes. Thank you, doctor. One moment before we call the next witness. Does the prosecution have any further witnesses?
Yes, Your Honor. The prosecution calls Remy Montoya. Also, at this time, the prosecution also calls another time check, Your Honor.
Of course. Madam Clerk?
Prosecution has 4 minutes and 56 seconds remaining for direct examination. Would defense also like a time check?
Yes, thank you.
Defense has 6 minutes and 3 seconds remaining for cross-examination.
May I begin, Your Honor?
Yes, but I do see our bailiff who first needs to swear in Mr. Montoya just to make sure that he's telling us the truth today.
Please state your name and spell it out for the court.
Remy Montoya, Montaya. No,
Please,
Oya.
please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to the facts and rules of the mock trial competition?
I do.
Thank you.
Before you begin, Ms. Rodriguez, I know Mr. Montoya, this may not be possible just in light of our restraints, but we're getting a little bit of feedback on your audio. And I'm not sure if you're able to fix that for us. What we hear is an echo of
Well,
your.
I think that was just the they were the bailiff, right? I
You're
think
right.
since the bailiff wasn't using a microphone and headset, the audio would be doubling due to the echo from their device going in through their microphone as well.
You appear to be 100% correct. Thank you, Mr. Montoya.
No problem.
Rodriguez, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good evening, Mr. Montoya.
Evening.
Are you familiar with a person named Lee Crotty?
Hell yeah, I watched their videos and I've also met them in person and I'm also in a group chat with them.
When, if at all, did you start communicating with Miss Lee Crotty?
I got a direct message in March of 2019 from them to come to a group chat on Twitter.
How, if at all, how else have you communicated with them?
In August 2019, I attended a meet and greet, and as well I go through direct messages with them on WhatsApp.
Now, moving on, are you familiar with Drew Marshak?
Yes, I am. Wait, hold on. Yeah, that's the guy I punched in the face.
How were you able to come in contact with Mr. Marshak?
Well, Lee left a little hint of their address in a video link that they sent to the Twitter group chat, and when I saw that, Lee said that we should go and ask for questions and get answers. And then I also got a direct message from them later that day through WhatsApp asking me if I would be there and I'm at the area where the meeting would be, and told me to get the files from the government agent. Space aliens, man.
Do you have is it Exhibit C in front of you?
No, I do not.
Your
I don't
Honor,
have
I
a
would
physical thing.
I would like to ask for some time so the witness can pull it up.
Yes, no problem.
Your Honor, as both teams agreed, I would like to let the court know that time has been stopped.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
And found it. Exhibit C, you said, right?
Yes.
And so time will resume when you ask your next question.
Okay. Is this a true and accurate depiction of the conversation?
Of the direct messages between me and Crotty? Yeah, that's pretty accurate.
Your Honor, I move Exhibit C into evidence.
Any objection, Mr. Charlton?
No, Your Honor.
It will be admitted as Exhibit C.
Okay. Mr. Montoya, can you read for us what it says on line 21?
21. Give me a moment.
No, sorry. Line 12.
Line 12. Give me a moment. My it's not loading anymore. For some reason it froze and it's reloading.
Your Honor, can we stop time?
Yes, please do.
And it is reloaded. You said which line again?
Line 12.
94. 7. Oh, line 12. You said, okay. I need you to go to the agent. I need you to go to Agent Marshak's. It's near you. Get the rest of the documents. I won't be in the area tomorrow. Otherwise, I'd do it myself. Can you go to the house and try to get them before the meetup tomorrow?
This conversation, Lee Crotty was the one asking you to go to Drew Marshak's home and get the documents, correct?
Yeah, she asked me to get the documents.
So when you went, so did you go try and get the documents?
Well, I'm being convicted of home invasion, and I punched a man in the face. So, pretty accurate. Yes, I went and got the documents, and well, I got arrested.
What
Space
happened?
aliens,
What did you do after you got the documents?
Well, after I got the documents, I went to the meet and greet and saw Lee. They told me to wait a bit after the meet and greet so we could talk. And from then on, I was taken to Lee's house.
Who took you to Lee's house?
Lee herself.
So just to be clear, Lee Karate took you to their private residence.
Yes, they did.
And did you stay there overnight?
Yeah, yeah. And then I was arrested in the morning. Swear, man, they're in with space aliens.
Was there
Government.
any discussion on your way to Lee Karate's house?
Yeah. Miss Crotty asked me, Lee actually, Lee asked me if it was, while heading to their home, I threw the suitcase onto the ground and said, all of my problems are due to this goddamn suitcase, and they asked me if it was a prop.
And how did you respond?
Well, how did I respond? Well, exactly how I said that, to be exact. I threw the suitcase on the ground. And I got mad at the moment because, well, I was evading police and space aliens, man.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Space aliens.
Thank you. Mr. Charlton, are you ready for cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may proceed.
Mr. Montoya,
Hi there.
can you remind the court what sort of things you discussed in the group chat?
In the group chat, we discussed. Well, I was never asked to discuss anything that we discussed in the group chat. But in the group chat, we Lee sent the video, and then she told us that we need to go get answers. But after that, after the group chat, Lee asked me privately to go and get the documents myself.
And Drew Marshak came up in that conversation, is that correct?
Well, she left the name and address unblurred, no dark lines to cover the name or address, nothing. It was just there sitting for, well, the public to see.
In your witness statement, you mentioned that Drew Marshak's address came up in a YouTube video, is that correct?
Yeah, that was the video that Lee sent to the group chat.
And you chose to write down that address, correct?
Well, I didn't per se choose. Lee asked me after the group chat to go get the documents. I didn't choose. I was asked to.
But was anyone asking you to write down the address of Drew Marshak?
No, but Lee asked me, am I going to be at the meet and greet? I said yes. They asked me to go get the documents.
So to clarify for the court, Lee Crotty did not specifically ask you to write down his address, their address.
Lee herself asked me, go get the documents. So therefore, that would hint at me needing to go write down the address and knowing where it's at and going to said address. And, well, as you know, I'd need to know the address, write it down so I wouldn't forget it. So therefore, since she asked me, I kind of had to write it down just in case I'd forget.
And to your knowledge, no one else in the group chat wrote down that address, correct?
Well, Lee messaged me directly afterwards saying, go get the documents. So I'm pretty sure that I'd need to write down the address to remember it just in case I forgot, like while heading to the meet and greet or anything like that.
On February 13th, Lee Crotty posted a YouTube video where they asked people should demand answers from Marshak. Is that correct?
Yes.
And did you watch this YouTube video?
Yes. Because it was the video that was sent to the group chat as well.
According to your testimony, you stated that you assumed that this was a direct call to you and your group.
Yeah.
So to clarify, you assumed that a YouTube video posted on YouTube where anyone around the world could see it was directed at you.
Well, Lee also messaged me after I saw the video and after it was sent to the group chat to ask me to go get the documents. So yes, in general, yes.
Do you follow any other YouTubers?
Objection, Your Honor. Outside the scope of witness.
Under unfair extrapolation?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Charlton, is there a reference to a fact in this witness's statement or the general prologue of facts that you could point us to, or that this is a reasonable inference from a fact that you could point us to?
No, Your Honor. I withdraw the question.
Thank you. Next question.
So I think it's safe to say that you're a fan of his, correct? Or
Yes.
her.
Yes, I'm a fan of hers.
As such a fan, you follow Lee Crody on all her social media accounts, correct?
Yeah.
You and Lee Crody had a private conversation at midnight on Valentine's Day, is that correct?
This Valentine or the previous?
The previous.
Yes.
Can I please direct you to Exhibit C?
Yes, you may.
Lee Crody messaged you at 12:41 a.m., is that correct?
Yeah.
All right. After being asked if you lived in Beacon Hills, what is the first thing you told him?
Yeah, I'm in Beacon Hills. Anything you need, I'm there. You can count on me.
Now, can you read for the court the last thing Lee told you in the group chat, or in this chat?
Thank you. Good luck tomorrow. Don't do anything I wouldn't do.
Can you tell the court what this would be in reference to?
I wouldn't know because I don't know Lee that personally to say. I don't know if they'd break in and punch a man like I did. Oh, I went 1-2 Rocky on him. But per se, no, I don't know what this would be hinting at.
Lee never asked you to break into Drew Marshak's house, correct?
They asked me to go get the documents.
But did they ever specifically ask you to assault anyone?
What else was I supposed to do? Sing a song to him? Wave my hands, make him dinner, say, "Hi there, how's your kids been?" If I got startled, so at the heat of the moment, what was I gonna do? I just punched him. It was a reflex.
Can you please turn to Exhibit A?
Yes.
Is the briefcase. This is the briefcase you took from Drew Marshak, correct?
Yeah, I took it from the agent.
Your Honor, I'd like to bring Exhibit A into the court.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
So moved.
At any time, did Lee Crody have possession of the briefcase?
When we were in the car together, base technically, but no. Besides that, no.
Did you get arrested because you were trying to impress Lee Crody?
Impress?
You're muted, Your Honor.
Thank you for that. I said that I will allow an answer to this question because the question was fully stated under time. Mr. Charlton, would you please repeat the question?
Yes. Did you get arrested because you were trying to impress Lee Crody?
I was asked to get the documents, sir. Lee asked me, so therefore I got them. Because we're out to expose aliens in the government, man. It's space aliens, man.
Mr. Charlton, you're out of time, so I assume no further
Yeah.
questions.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Ms. Rodriguez, any redirect?
No, Your Honor. May this witness be excused.
Yes, thank you all.
At this time, the prosecution rests, Your Honor.
Thank you. Then we will move to the defense case in chief. Does the defense wish to call its first witness at this time?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr.
The-
Morales.
The defense would like to call Zuri O'Neill to the stand.
Thank you. Ms. Thatch, you'll be doing the cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Please state your name and spell it out for the court.
My name is Zuri O'Neill, Oneill.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to the facts and rules of the mock trial competition?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Your Honor, may I begin?
You may.
Ms. O'Neill, how do you know the defendant, Lee Crody?
I know her from YouTube, and then we talked on Twitter for a bit.
And how long have you known the defendant?
It was around March of 2019.
Why do you watch the defendant's channel, The Right Choice for News?
Because I'm a fan and want to stay well informed of what the government is hiding. Plus, she kind of cute.
Would you consider the defendant a violent or malicious person?
Nah, she's a nice person who just likes to speak what's on her mind, you know?
Do you know Remy Montoya?
Yeah, we're on the group chat together on Twitter.
Based on your chats, are Lee Crody and Remy Montoya close?
I don't know. I don't think so. Well, they don't appear that way online.
Did Crody ever ask you to break into a house?
What the heck? No.
Now, do you think Lee would ask anyone to break into someone's house and assault someone?
What? No.
Do you think Lee is the kind of person who herself would consider using violence to get what they want?
Nah, she's just trying to give us information on what the government's hiding. I mean, the videos say this video is for education.
And to your knowledge, did Lee ever ask you or anyone to break into the house?
Heck no. We wouldn't ask anyone to do that. I mean, we want answers, but we're not going to do all that violence.
Your Honor, that is all the questions the defense has for this witness.
Thank you. Cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. You said in your witness statement that Lee Crotty is a straight shooter, correct?
Yeah.
Isn't it true that Lee says exactly what Lee means?
Well, yeah.
In fact, one of the things that you love about the RCN and Lee is that her words leave very little room for interpretation, right?
Yeah.
Lee doesn't use subtext or hidden meaning, does she?
I haven't noticed it.
If Lee told someone you need to get into that house tomorrow, that means you need to get into that house, wouldn't it?
I guess.
So if Lee told someone you need to get into that house tomorrow, a reasonable interpretation would be that Lee was indeed urging his listener to enter into a house, correct?
Yeah.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Ms. Thatch, any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Give us 1 second before the defense calls its second witness. Okay, thank you. Defense, you can call your second witness.
Your Honor, once again, I'm Gabriel Barnhart, and I would like to call Aaron Sullivan to the stand.
Certainly.
Aaron Sullivan to the stand. Please state your name and spell it out for the court.
Aaron Sullivan, Suill. Wait, I'm sorry. It's ErinSullivan.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to the facts and rules of the mock trial competition?
I do.
Thank you.
Before I begin, Your Honor, the defense would like to ask for a time check.
Certainly.
The prosecution asked as well.
Defense has 12 minutes and 24 seconds remaining for direct examination. Prosecution has 9 minutes and 8 seconds remaining for cross-examination.
Thank you.
Clerk?
May I proceed?
Yes.
Ms. Sullivan, what do you do for a living?
I'm an agent, sweetheart. But I think that what you're trying to get to is I am Lee Crody's agent.
Ms. Sullivan, as Lee's agent, what does your job entail?
My job is to set up events for Lee, schedule appearances, act as a liaison with Lee's publicist, and work with the legal and business side of Lee's brand.
Ms. Sullivan, you said you work with the legal sides. What do you mean by this?
Well, I assure you anytime Lee is going to advocate for a certain cause or charity, directly ask for actions from Lee's followers, it is clearly legal and cannot implicate Lee in any serious legal issues.
Ms. Sullivan, can you give us an example of this?
Well, for instance, before all his videos, he has a disclaimer. That part reads, "The purpose of this video is for education and discussions only."
Ms. Sullivan, did you help bring up the idea of creating Lee Karate's group chats?
Yes, I mean, this was a good way to gain followers and be more engaged with the viewers. And let me tell you, it worked. Lee hit 1 million subscribers. How exciting, right?
Sure. Ms. Sullivan, in regards to the group chats, you stated that, quote, followers feel like they're supporting a friend instead of a social media personality. Is that true?
Yes, but I'll admit that some fans take it a bit too far.
Too far. Ms. Sullivan, can you elaborate on that?
Lee has to help out fans who don't realize Lee is not really their friend and it's just a personality. But some fans get a bit too obsessed. You know what I mean?
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Sullivan.
Oh my God, you were great. If you ever want your own show, just give me a call.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. You observed Lee Crotty and Remy Montoya interacting at the meet and greet event on February 15, 2020, correct?
Indeed, I did.
And from their interaction, it seemed that Lee knew Remy quite well, correct?
Yes.
In fact, Lee sort of embraced Remy.
Yeah.
And showed Remy to a table nearby.
Yes.
And then Lee asked you to keep an eye on Remy, correct?
Indeed.
Finally, at the end of the event, Lee told you she was taking Remy home to crash at Lee's place.
Yes.
This was despite the fact that you told Lee not to get too involved, correct?
Yes.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, counsel. Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. May this witness
Thank you.
be excused? Very good. One moment before we call the third witness for the defense. Thank you. The defense can call its next witness.
Before we begin, Your Honor, the defense would like a time check, please.
Certainly.
The prosecution as well, Your Honor.
Defense has 10 minutes and 16 seconds remaining for direct examination, and prosecution has 8 minutes and 24 seconds remaining for cross-examination.
Very good. Mr. Morales, who's your next witness?
Your Honor, the defense would like to call Dr. Jess Biart to the stand.
Of course.
Jess Biart. Please state your name and spell it out for the court.
My name is Abigail Levine. I'll be portraying the role of Dr. Jess Beart, Jesbeaart.
Thank you.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to the facts and rules of the mock trial competition?
Yes.
Thank you.
Your Honor, may I begin?
May.
Hello, Dr. Bart. Please tell us your background and qualifications.
Well, I graduated from Peterson University in 2007 with a bachelor's degree in sociology and
We can't hear you.
marketing. What?
Mr. Morales, are you able to hear us?
My apologies, Your Honor, my volume was off.
No problem. Is everything okay now? Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Very good. Go ahead.
Would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
Dr. Bart, please tell us your background and qualifications.
Well, I graduated from Peterson University in 2007 with a bachelor's degree in sociology and marketing and a minor in psychology. I then pursued a PhD in sociology focusing on activism and social movement at Peterson University, and published my thesis titled Slacktivism in the Age of Twitter. Since then, I became an associate professor of sociology at Beechwood University and continued my research on social movements.
And what is an area of research that you would pertain to this case?
I have published different articles, and in June 2020, I published an article in Social Networks.
What was the focus of the article?
I focused primarily on what made the movement successful, so switched to social media.
What did you find in your research?
Well, you see, I found that most effective movements were led by young youth and young adults.
You mentioned social media. What did you find?
Well, when social media first started to take root and play a part in our everyday lives, it seemed that online reality and in-person reality existed in entirely separate worlds.
Was there anything in your research you found important to the case?
Yes. It was not until Greta Thunberg, a 15-year-old girl in Sweden, sat outside a parliament building instead of attending school. I began to see the potential of social media to affect in-person or real-time activism. In conclusion, over 7 million students participated in a movement called School Strike for Climate.
Would you say Lee herself was an activist?
Yes. Lee was the kind of activist like Thunberg, who sees themselves as a catalyst for movement, but not as the leader of an organization that will direct actions of said movement.
Dr. Bart, what draws you to this opinion?
I'm sorry, can you please repeat the question?
Yes. Dr. Bart, what draws you to this opinion?
Well, Lee is the kind of activist who seeks to inspire others to take independent action without participating in said actions.
Do you have any facts in the case that will back up your opinion?
Yes. Lee's videos and communications to fans and in group chats are constantly framed as a means of getting information out to the world, not taking illegal action.
Dr. Bart, I will show you Exhibit B and Exhibit C that shows Lee and Remy's communications. Can you tell me what you noticed after reading these communications?
Yes. In the exhibits, I see that Lee wants to tap into the power of the fandom that follows her to start a movement that, similar to Thunberg's school strike movement, acts independently of Lee.
So in your professional opinion, Remy is Remy able to make her own decisions for her actions?
Well, yes. It seems to me that Remy would have been able to separate her adoration of Lee from the reality of her choices and act independently of Lee's influence in order to show dedication to the cause they shared.
Your Honor, that is all the questions the defense has for this witness.
Thank you. Is there cross-examination, Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes, Your Honor.
Whenever you're ready.
Good evening, Ms. Bayard.
Good evening.
You did see that Lee Crotty individually texted Remy Montoya asking him to go get the documents, correct?
Yes.
In fact, Lee Crotty messaged Remy saying, get into that house, correct?
Yes.
And you agree that Lee Crotty started the movement that Remy Montoya believed themselves to be a part of, correct?
Well, yes.
And wouldn't you agree that usually someone who starts a movement is the leader of the movement?
On a technical term, yes.
Thank you. And you agree that Remy idolized Lee Crotty, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
You would agree that Remy could be characterized as a stan or a fan who ardently promotes, follows, and idolizes the object of their affection, in this case, Lee Crotty, correct?
Correct.
And you would agree that Lee wanted to tap into the power of the fandom that he influenced, and then his movement would act independently of Lee, correct?
Correct.
While still Lee being the leader of the movement. Lee is the leader of the movement, correct?
Yes.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Any redirect, Mr. Morales?
No, Your Honor.
Wonderful. Then this witness may be excused. Barnard, are you ready with our fourth and final witness?
Yes, Your Honor.
Whenever you're ready.
I would like to call Lee Crotty, the defendant, to the stand.
The moment we've all been waiting for.
Indeed.
Please state your name and spell it out for the court.
I am Lee Crotty, Leecroddy.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to the facts and rules of the mock trial competition?
Yes.
Thank you.
Your Honor, may I proceed?
You may.
Thank you. Ms. Crotty, can you tell the court what you do for a living?
I am the host of the YouTube show The Right Choice of News, RCN.
And what is the right choice of news about, Ms. Crotty?
Telling the truth about what the mainstream media won't tell us.
Ms. Crotty, did you create the group chats with your fans?
Yes, I have multiple group chats related to my channel and its content.
And Ms. Crotty, who do you engage with in said group chats?
I spoke with many people, usually my more enthusiastic fans, people supporting the cause.
And what were you trying to do with these group chats, Ms. Crotty?
I was trying to gain publicity. My agent advised me to create a connection with my fans.
And Ms. Crotty, how do you know Remy Montoya?
They're a very engaged follower. They like to try and interact with my posts, and if I remember correctly, they may have been to a couple meet and greets.
Ms. Crotty, are you very close with Remy Montoya?
No, we have had a few conversations, but they are just a fan, so most interactions aren't very personal. I barely even know them, honestly.
And Ms. Crotty, what did you ask Remy Montoya to do on February 15th?
I only asked Remy to go and try to get the documents from Marshak. I only expected that Remy would go to the house, knock on the door, and maybe demand the documents.
And Ms. Crotty, why did you ask Remy Montoya to do this?
I knew that I needed to keep the momentum I had started with the information in my previous video. If I could get the documents as soon as possible, it could help my views go up.
Now, Ms. Crotty, did you tell Remy Montoya to break into someone's house?
No, I would never ask someone to do something I wouldn't do.
Ms. Crotty, did you tell Remy Montoya to punch someone to get the documents?
No, again, I would never ask someone to do something I wouldn't do.
Ms. Crotty, did Remy Montoya later appear at your meet and greet?
Yes.
What was Remy Montoya's behavior like when he approached you?
Well, when he showed up, it took me a minute to recognize Remy. We'd only met very few times before, but they were visibly shaken and rambling. I could barely understand what he was saying.
And Ms. Crotty, how did you respond to Remy's frantic state?
Well, Remy is a big fan, and my job is to be loyal to all my fans.
So I did my best to calm him down, even asked my agent to keep an eye on him until the meet was over. Then I was still concerned for Remy and invited him over to stay the night at my guest house.
So, Miss Crotty, after the meet and greet, you drove Remy Montoya back to your house. How did the ride go?
I didn't think Remy should be alone. He seemed very panicked. They were still rambling, but I couldn't understand them very well. Remy kept kicking this briefcase. I was driving, so I couldn't exactly make out what it was. It sounded hollow, so I asked if it was some kind of prop. That just made Remy more upset.
Miss Crotty, what happened when you arrived at your house later that night?
I took Remy in through the back because they said something about laying low. I was just trying to make them feel a bit better. They thought that they were being followed or something.
Did Remy Montoya ever tell you what was going on, Miss Crotty?
At that point, I gave up trying to find out. Remy seemed to be at a breaking point. Everything he said was a frantic ramble. I could barely understand. I just wanted to calm Remy down.
Miss Crotty, did you ever come into possession of the briefcase that you saw Remy Montoya with during the car ride?
No, I never had the briefcase. It wasn't a concern for me at the time.
And what happened the next morning, Miss Crotty?
I woke up and saw Remy pacing in the front yard, but I decided to sleep in a bit longer. But the next time I woke up to the sound of Remy yelling, that's when I went out and saw him getting arrested. I asked the officer what was going on.
And Miss Crotty, what happened next?
The officer told me they were being arrested for burglary and assault. Then the officer asked me to show him where Remy slept and asked a few basic questions. Obviously, I did everything he asked. I was very compliant.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. One moment before you begin your cross, Ms. Rodriguez. Okay, whenever you're ready, you can begin your cross.
Good evening, Miss Crotty.
Good evening.
You had stated that you had admired Remy Montoya for shoving someone who called your movement a bunch of lunatics, correct?
Yes.
And you testified that you and Montoya aren't close, correct?
Yes.
You were the one who released Marshak's personal information to your Twitter group chat that included Montoya along with a few other of your followers, correct?
Yes.
You also texted Montoya individually asking Montoya to go to Marshak's home to get the documents from Marshak's home, correct?
Yes.
You emphasized the need for those documents, correct?
Yes.
You texted Montoya asking him to try to get those documents before your meet and greet, correct?
Yes.
You also personally drove Montoya to your private residence after your meet and greet on February 15th, correct?
Yes.
And on the way to your private residence, you saw Remy kick the briefcase under his seat, correct?
Yes.
And you stated that the briefcase was official looking, correct?
I mean, I was driving, so I thought it sounded light when he kicked it around.
But you did state that the briefcase looked official looking, correct?
Yes.
Finally, you expected Remy to go to a government official's private residence and demand to be given classified government documents?
Yes.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. Mr. Barnhart, any redirect?
No, Your Honor. May the witness be excused. Thank you.
But she will remain in court until we.
Well, yes, of course, until the ruling.
Yes.
Then I'm sure she'll be free to go on her way.
Well, first I'll have to hear closing arguments, which we will move to next. Give us 1 second, and I'll give counsel a moment to collect your thoughts before closing arguments. I'll be right with you.
Your Honor, could the jury request a 5-minute restroom break? Or 3 minutes?
5 minutes is fine. We're doing fine on time. It'll allow everybody to gather their thoughts for closing and the scorers to get scores in order. So I will be back with you. Let's see. By satellite time, I have 6:58, so how about 7:03?
Thank you.
Thank you. Give everybody a 1-minute warning, and maybe to the clerk also that each closer may need their time remaining. So let me know when both sides are ready.
I'm sorry, Your Honor. Could you repeat what you said?
Yes, certainly. I was just giving everybody a 1-minute warning and to you a heads up that just in case either closer would like their time remaining.
Thank you.
Ms. Rodriguez, are you prepared to begin your closing argument?
Yes, Your Honor.
Make sure that The representative from the defense is also back and ready to go.
Yes, Your Honor.
Very good. Ms. Rodriguez, whenever you are ready.
Can I get the time check?
Of course.
Prosecution has 6 minutes and 12 seconds remaining for their closing argument.
And let's just ask for the defense now so that she can also be prepared.
Defense has 6 minutes and 19 seconds remaining for their closing statements.
Thank you very much.
May I begin, Your Honor?
May.
Your Honor, tonight the prosecution had the burden to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant, Lee Crotty, committed the crime of aiding and abetting a first-degree burglary committed by Remy Montoya and accessory after the fact to a felony committed by Remy Montoya. And tonight, the prosecution has met the burden. You've heard from 4 prosecution witnesses. First, you heard from Drew Marshak, the victim who was assaulted and robbed of sensitive government information in his own home, and who testified that after having been assaulted by Remy Montoya, Montoya stated, and I quote, "Oh no, Lee is not going to like this, and at least I got the proof we needed." Then you heard from Officer Maxford, the arresting officer of Remy Montoya and Lee Crotty, who testified that while arresting Remy Montoya, Montoya had stated, "Officer, we are starting a revolution here, my friend. Join us. We're the only ones that know the truth." And although Montoya did not specify who he referred to as us, Officer Maxford stated that Montoya nodded toward Lee Crotty's residence while making the statement, a clear indication that Lee Crotty was involved. Officer Maxford also testified that on the way to the police station, while making casual conversation with Lee Crotty admitted to having told Remy Montoya to go to Drew Marshak's home and get the documents. Next, you heard from Dr. Kai Chavez, an expert witness who testified that based on the evidence they examined, the idea of groupthink, which leaves little room for individual creativity or decision-making, pertains to this case because Lee Crotty had created a toxic groupthink environment, made hostile calls to action, and imposed his individual desires upon others. Your Honor, the defense will lead you to believe that Lee Crotty is not at fault and should not be found guilty because Crotty is not responsible for Montoya's actions. But the prosecution has proven that Lee Crotty was the mastermind behind Montoya's actions. Lee Crotty knew that Montoya was going to go to Drew Marshak's home because Lee Crotty was the one that told Montoya to go to Drew Marshak's home before the meet and greet. Lee Crotty was expecting the documents, Your Honor. And therefore, Lee Crotty should be found guilty. Finally, you heard from Remy Montoya, one of Lee Crotty's most devoted followers, who testified that Lee Crotty had individually asked Montoya to go to Marshak's home and get the documents they needed. Remy Montoya also stated that Lee Crotty had taken Montoya to Crotty's private residence after the meet and greet and allowed Montoya to spend the night. Remy Montoya did not have the intention to hurt anyone. He had the intentions to get the documents Lee Crotty wanted because Remy Montoya was such a devoted follower. It was clear that Montoya was well under and acted under the influence of Lee Crotty. Your Honor, the prosecution asks that you find Lee Crotty guilty of both accounts, aiding and abetting a first-degree burglary committed by Remy Montoya and accessory after the fact to a felony committed by Remy Montoya. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. Argument from the defense.
Good evening, Your Honor. My name is Mia Mastrangelo, and I will be presenting closing arguments for the defense of Ms. Crotty. Your Honor, once again, the prosecution tried to paint a picture that portrays Ms. Crotty as a villainous figure who has her followers go to people's houses and assault government officials. The truth is that Ms. Crotty never asked, nor would she ever ask someone to break into another person's house and assault them. This picture painted by the prosecution that Ms. Crotty asked Mr. Montoya to break into a government official's house and assault them clearly does not make sense. We heard clear testimonies from Ms. Crotty's agent, Aaron Sullivan, who made it clear that the group chat was created for publicity and nothing more.
Zuri O'Neill, one of Miss Crody's longtime fans, testified to Miss Crody's character, stating that she understands that Miss Crody is just a personality and knows not to take everything she says literally. Miss O'Neill went on to say that Miss Crody is not the type of person to call for violence to get things done. Dr. Jess Beard then shared with you her professional opinion on Miss Crody's character as well as the relationship between Miss Crody and Mr. Montoya. She shared that Mr. Montoya is the kind of activist who will act independently of a political influencer like Miss Crody in pursuit of shared political goals. Dr. Jess Beard is also asked what she has to say about Mr. Montoya in her professional opinion. She shares that it seems to her that Mr. Montoya would have been able to separate his adoration of Miss Crody from the reality of his actions and act independently of Miss Crody's influence in order to show dedication to the cause they shared. Now, we have an expert's opinion on the situation, and it is clear that Mr. Montoya is obsessed with Miss Crody, and he decided to break into the home and assault a government official himself. He was never asked to do any of this, but he is so infatuated with Miss Crody that he wanted to go above and beyond and took Miss Crody's statement way out of proportion. Miss Crody only said that the information would be useful knowledge for the video. She never told Mr. Montoya to do any of this. Mr. Montoya chose to write down the address, break into the home, and assault Mr. Marshak himself. Mr. Marshak also said that Mr. Montoya said, "Oh no, Lee isn't going to like this," frantically. This shows that Mr. Montoya made his own decision, and Miss Crody was not aware of the situation. We also spoke to Miss Crody, and she clearly says that she would never ask someone else to do something she wouldn't do herself. She says she would never ask someone to break into someone's house and assault someone. Now, the evidence has clearly shown that Miss Crody never asked Mr. Montoya to break into the home and assault a government official. Your Honor, if someone says to another person to jump off a bridge, that person isn't going to jump off that bridge. Everyone is responsible for their own actions. If we had everyone listening to what they were told to do, we would have a lot of Lee Crodys in this courtroom today. Mr. Montoya is so infatuated with Miss Crody that he decided to do all of this on his own after taking Miss Crody's statement way out of proportion. We ask that you find the defendant not guilty. The defense rests, Your Honor.
Thank you, counsel. Does the prosecution wish to rebut?
Yes, Your Honor.
Whenever you're ready.
Your Honor, the defense argues that Lee Crotty is not guilty because she did not ask or tell Remy Montoya to go to the officer's house, assault him, and rob the documents. What Lee Crotty did was tell Remy Montoya to go to the agent's home and get the documents. The assault may have been an aftermath or in the moment accident that occurred. Remy Montoya was spooked, and that was his reaction. But Your Honor, there's no doubt that Lee Crotty is guilty of aiding and abetting an accessory after the fact. Lee Crotty sheltered Remy Montoya after the incident, after the crime was committed, and Lee Crotty told Remy Montoya to go and get the documents. It is not reasonable to believe that Lee Crotty expected Remy to go and just demand classified information from government officials and get them. Your Honor, the prosecution asks that you find Lee Crotty guilty of all crimes. Thank you.
Stop.
Thank you. Does the defense wish to give a rebuttal?
Yes, Your Honor.
Whenever
Your
you're-
Honor, sorry. Your Honor, the defendant never asked anybody to break into a home and assault Drew Marshak. Remy Montoya is responsible for Remy Montoya's own actions. Although Lee stated they need to demand the documents, Ms. Crotty does not condemn violence. We ask that you find the defendant not guilty. The defense rests, Your Honor.
Thank you, everyone. I'm going to allow both sides now an opportunity to confer to see if there have been any deviations from our rules of policy and procedure in this jurisdiction. While our scorers, who you will meet momentarily, finish up their ballots.
Your Honor, there's no irregularities from the prosecution side.
Thank you.
Your Honor, there is no irregularities from the defense side. Thank you.
And give us one moment. And if my jurors just send me a private message in the chat when you're ready to move forward, then at that time I'll ask everybody to share their screens and I'll render a verdict and we can do some comments.
I just want to take the time to thank both the Cardinals and the Spartan Law for an excellent trial. At this time, we're going to give the judges a few minutes to submit their ballots. We ask that all competitors to turn their cameras on and to leave their microphones on mute. So judges, if you need to be moved to another room, let me know and I can do that. Or if you need to, or you have a question, just private message me on Zoom as well.
Thanks, Rafa.
You're welcome. Can everybody, just once the ballots are submitted, we can begin our comment period. Judges, please confirm once you have your ballots in, just so I can double check.
Rafa, I have confirmation from Miss Reed and Mr. Johnson. So let us know when you have them on your end.
Okay. Let me have them check because it's not popping up on my side, and for whatever reason, it happened. The same thing happened last time.
Yeah, I just got confirmation. So maybe if you wait a couple seconds and refresh, maybe it'll pop up. Any luck, Rafa?
No, I'm still waiting. And like I said, last time that I did this, it didn't populate into my screen, so they confirmed from me. So I'm waiting for Delaney, the blue shirt lead, to confirm.
Okay. If Greg and Taryn no longer have access to their ballots, can we
Right.
go comments?
Yeah, I'm sure we can.
Yeah, as long as there's no objection from either side. And we of course won't leave until we get confirmation that the ballots are in.
Perfect.
Great. Well, I'd like to start with a big congratulations for finishing round 4. Everybody did a very good job. I know this is it's never easy, but it's much more difficult on this platform. So to be doing this night after night, and then with the tech glitch earlier this week, I know it's frustrating, but everyone hung in there, and I thank you for that. You know, as I shared at the outset, I've been in your seat, I've been in your shoes, and still wanted to become an attorney in spite of it. And so after practicing in a few different areas, environmental litigation, externships with the district attorney's office, working in New York for a bit, I ultimately ended up back in Ventura and Santa Barbara. And I now I own a law firm with the guy who was my high school mock trial coach, Ron Bamier. So I'm the managing partner at Bamier and DeSmith. He was in the district attorney's office in the 90s when I was competing in your shoes in the high school mock trial competition. And we practiced family law, criminal defense, and plaintiff's civil litigation. So you know a bit where I'm coming from. Your 2 evaluators this evening are talented and experienced litigators and former debate and mock trial champions. So I'm going to hand it over to them to introduce themselves, to give some comments. We're going to keep it brief. We're going to keep it positive. We know that you all must be tired, and I'll let you hear a little bit from them, and then if we have time, maybe open it up for a couple questions. So Greg, why don't you start us off?
Sure. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. I'm using my iPad. Great job, you guys. I'm Greg Johnson. I've been a lawyer for 25 years. I didn't do this, but I did do speech and debate all through high school, and I did debate all through college, which is probably why I became a lawyer. I didn't want to get a job, so I went to law school. I started trying cases really early. I think I've tried 25 to 30. I practice I have my own firm with a partner here in Thousand Oaks, and we do primarily elder abuse litigation. Over the years, I've had a lot of cases with Taryn's firm, the other attorney scored tonight. So that was cool. We got a chance to catch up beforehand. I thought it was very well prepared. I'll tell you that the lawyer in me read everything, and I had an opinion before I watched the first night. And that first night, I really listened to the evidence and left that. The judge there ruled the way I would have ruled. And tonight, I just listened to the evidence. I would go the other way. So to me, that says that there was some good advocacy because I was already leaning one direction. Here's a couple of quick points I'll take. I was a speech major. I would have thought that one couldn't be an effective oral advocate on Zoom until we were all forced to a year ago. But here's my little piece of constructive advice. Just because you're on Zoom doesn't mean you can't use nonverbal communication. I went to a 3-hour seminar once just on eyebrows. Okay, I'll sum it up. Eyebrows down is bad. Eyebrows up is good. So that the first rule of communication is know your audience. But you can get feedback on Zoom. So if you're speaking and the judge is eyebrows up, you've raised a good point. Eyebrows down, that's probably not a winner for you. And there are some of you who found a way to communicate with nonverbal communication, despite the fact that this is all we can see. And you did it every once in a while by using your hands. Some of you used your voices better and were able to emphasize certain things. To do that, you've got to slow down. It's okay to read if you're going slow enough that you can still emphasize words, and you'll give yourself space, and your body will take over, and you will communicate nonverbally. I accidentally just shrugged my shoulders just now. That's a nonverbal communication, which is a huge part of communication. So I was there with this group. I thought more than the other night that I watched, more of you that were good at that through using your head or every once in a while gesturing. And I found that to be really effective. I liked the personality from the witnesses. And I keep having to tell myself, right, like, okay, that's believable. This is how a witness would behave. But those personality bits were fun and entertaining. So I get it, and I was open to it. But the level of preparation and how well you answered each other's questions was great. There were a lot fewer objections tonight, but for the most part, that was because the questions were pretty locked down. There were some that I thought could have had objections, and I made a couple comments. But overall, I was seriously impressed with the level of advocacy that took place over a video screen, where for most of you, I just saw your face.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Greg. Great comments. Taryn.
Hi, everyone. My name is Taryn Reed, and as Greg mentioned, I work for a civil litigation firm. We tend to do the defense side of the long-term care cases, but I've kind of had the opportunity to take on everything in the civil defense litigation space. I, similar to you all, did mock trial in high school, and then I went on to do it in college and a little bit in law school. And so this program is very near and dear to my heart. And I just want to say that all of you should be extremely proud of yourselves for the perseverance and the grit it took to want to do this and convince yourself to keep at it, with all things considered. And so kudos to you. Really pat yourselves on the back. And to all the parents and family members and family friends watching, they should also be extraordinarily proud of what you guys have achieved by having to put up with COVID and an internet outage. I cannot believe it. But you guys were fantastic. You really knew your facts. It was clear what exactly you were trying to get at, what information you wanted out of the witnesses. The witnesses, it was very clear where you were steering the case. In terms of any constructive feedback, I second everything that Greg said. I think that along those lines of facial expressions, I think if you can stand up, if possible, or scoot the monitor a little bit back and use your hands, use those gestures, have some sort of motion, that'll help you become a more effective communicator and litigator. As for the witnesses, I know you're limited, you can't dress up in complete costume, but really lean into that character. It is performative, it is a little bit of theater. Don't be afraid to really go there. And we got to see it a little bit tonight. I think you guys can take it a little bit further if you'd like to for some of the more kooky characters. But overall, you guys did great. I think just working around the Zoom parameters of what you would be kind of the next step in terms of how can I become more effective on this platform specifically. But overall, congratulations. Be proud of yourselves. You all did great.
Thanks, Taryn. And yeah, speaking of witness roles that are difficult to play, the defendant is always a tough one to play. So having had this opportunity to reflect, Lee Crotty, I find you not guilty of the charges brought by the prosecution. It's a tough case for the prosecution, I think. And Ms. Crotty convinced me that, well, I think she's definitely smart enough to be the mastermind. Didn't quite find that the prosecution met their very high burden. So you're free to go. Does anybody have, we've about hit our 10-minute mark. And I did get confirmation from Rafa that all the ballots are in. Thank you. Nothing to worry about there. So attorney coaches, you didn't, and faculty advisors, you didn't get to introduce yourselves at the beginning, but I know everybody works really hard. So thank you also for all of your work. I'm sure your students appreciate it. And if anybody wants to take any Zoom photos or ask any questions, now's the time.
Hi, I'm Sylvia Gomez, the advisor for Rio Mesa Spartan Law. I just wanted to say thank you to everyone as well, but I really admire being the fourth round that you guys come back and like judge and score. I mean, that's so meaningful, you know, for anybody, like for any of our students that are looking in the future or look, you know, to become attorneys or lawyers, to always give back. I mean, I'm a counselor at the high school, so I always let them know whatever you do out there, just try to be a blessing and come back and do something for someone else. So I really appreciate you guys coming in and giving your expertise and stuff, because that's very valuable, I feel, you know, to this young generation going out and, you know, kind of choosing what their paths are going to be. And hopefully, you know, if they become attorneys, we'll see them back here again. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. And great job, everyone.
Sylvia, I mean, your work is so meaningful to all of us, and everybody who you work with every day. So to piggyback on your point, if anyone out there is interested to find out what it's like to work in a law firm, write down our names: Greg Johnson, Darren Reed, Danielle DeSmith. Google us, reach out if you have questions, send us an email. And you can find anybody on the internet these days, right, Mr. Montoya? So yeah, we're happy to answer questions, you know, having been in your shoes and still doing it, we're there.
On behalf of the Rio Mesa defense team, I'm the co-captain. I would like to thank Santa Paula for competing against us. You guys did an amazing job. I know on behalf of the entire defense, we would like to show our admiration for Oscar, Remy Montoya. You did an amazing job. I know you had us having to settle down because we were very excited by your portrayal. It was great to compete with you guys, and we really appreciate it. Thank you, Ms. DeSmith. Thank you for being our judge. We really appreciate it. And thank you to the scorers. You know, I'm eager to see how the scores look. And Mr. Rafa, thank you on behalf of the entire Rio Mesa team.
Thank you, Mr. Barnhart. We appreciate your comments. Congratulations, everybody. We'll let you go debrief with your teams and see you next year, hopefully in person.
And before you all go out, once again, I just want to thank the judges for their great work and the scorers, because it takes a lot of time and dedication off their personal lives to kind of take the time to work with our kids, and just you're greatly appreciated, and thank you for doing what you're doing.
Thanks, Rafa. You too.